Good evening, the name's Bond, Captain Goodspeed Bond, and welcome to a brand new video. Now, Roger Moore, over the years, has become a real favourite of mine in the Bond franchise. There was a time when I'd have thought that he was the worst James Bond of them all, but as I've grown in adult life, I have come to love the innuendo-filled Rogertainment, and they are the films that I will put on if I'm feeling sorry for myself. Before Christmas, when I had COVID, I was watching Roger Moore film after Roger Moore film just to make myself feel a little bit better. And that's what we're going to be looking at today as we rank the late great Sir Roger Moore's Bond films from worst to best. For anyone out there who is new to Bond or simply just a casual fan, Roger Moore took over the role after Sean Connery's second exit as everyone's favourite secret agent back in 1973. Moore was already a household name with viewers after his role as Simon Templar in the 60s TV series The Saint. After a different Bond in each of the last three Bond films, it can't be understated how important it was for the producers to get the next film right and show that the series could in fact live without Connery. Did they pull it off? Well, let's find out as we rank the Roger Moore Bond films from worst to best.
Bring tears to your eyes.
Number 007. Yeah, I can't wait for the comments on this one. If you asked me 10 years ago which Roger Moore film was my favourite, I'd probably have said Live and Let Die. But I have to say, on more recent viewings, it just hasn't really connected with me the way it used to. It's quite clear that the producers wanted to make Moore's Bond as different to Connery as they could. This is one of only two Bond films where Bond doesn't even wear a tuxedo. He also smokes cigars instead of cigarettes, there's no Q scene, and he doesn't order a vodka martini. You get the picture. And I think that's one of the reasons that it slipped down my ranking. If Daniel Craig's era has taught me anything, it's that I like my Bonds to follow the formula and have those classic Bond elements. Perhaps Live and Let Die just doesn't have enough of those for me. Don't get me wrong though, there are some huge positives in this film. I love the villains, I love Solitaire, I love the fact Em and Moneypenny go to Bond's house, and as a bus enthusiast, I love the car, or should I say, bus chase. Sheriff Pepper is a real highlight, and who doesn't love Mrs. Bell? David Hedison will always be who I think of when I think about Felix Leiter, and I wish we had more of him in the film. I can really see why this is so high on other people's rankings, but for me, I find more enjoyment elsewhere. Number 006. If you thought my opinions on Live and Let Die were blasphemy, then God knows what you're going to think about this one. I really want to be able to watch Spy and enjoy it the way everyone else in the Bond community seems to do, but it just doesn't click with me. It's widely regarded that Lewis Gilbert's second film in the director's chair takes elements from You Only Live Twice and improves on them, but I couldn't disagree more. As you'll find out down the line, You Only Live Twice is God tier Bond for me, and perhaps that's why this one doesn't sit as well. I really enjoy the first half hour to an hour of the film, from Bond's arguably best ever stunt in the pre-title sequence that allegedly drew a standing ovation at the premiere, to travelling to Egypt and the tit-for-tat battle with Anya, to the incredible car chase and underwater sequences with the Lotus Esprit. That for me is Roger Moore at his absolute best, and we'll see much more of that in the next four films. Unfortunately though, while You Only Live Twice's climax is the absolute highlight of the film in my opinion, this is where The Spy Who Loves Me lets itself down. I just find myself bored by it. I can't put my finger on what it is, but it's just never really connected with me. The underwhelming villain in Stromberg is sure not to help, although Jaws is of course an iconic Bond villain that will always make this film watchable for me. Number 005. Yes, I really do enjoy The Man with the Golden Gun more than The Spy Who Loved Me, and there's nothing you can do about it. Now this is where Bond fully deviated from any resemblance of those first two Connery spy thrillers and went full-on spy comedy. From an innuendo-filled Bond song to some wacky score choices, The Man with the Golden Gun really doesn't take itself too seriously, and I think that is one of its strengths and attractions. I love the fact that Bond is chasing a person, an assassin, rather than trying to save the world from world domination. It's something a bit different, and with a main villain played by an actor as good as Christopher Lee, it really works. It's a real guilty pleasure of mine. I love the battle between Bond and Scaramanga at the film's climax, and the funhouse is one of the best sets of the entire series in my opinion. If there was one thing I think we could have had more of though, it's the gadgets, the cars, the Bond lifestyle. All in all though, the supporting cast of Nick Nack, Sheriff Pepper and the usual MI6 regulars really helps this film to breeze by, and you know you'll have a great time with it. Number 004. As much as Live and Let Die has fell out of favour with me over the last few years, For Your Eyes Only just keeps rising. There have been a few times in the series where Bond needed to steady the ship in terms of its filmmaking. This is definitely one of those times. After the outlandish Moonraker in 1979, Bond had reached a point where it needed to bring itself back down to earth, quite literally. This was always a film that used to bore me to tears in comparison to other James Bond films, but I actually now think this might be Moore's best acting performance in the series. I absolutely love the pre-title sequence and the reference to Tracy Bond in the opening moments. This puts in the ground any of those horrible little codename theorists. We also see the end of Blofeld in the sequence, or should I say random bald man in a wheelchair who likes white cats and wants to kill Bond? Oh, of course, the producers didn't have the rights to Blofeld or Spectre at this point, and we were only 2 years away from Kevin McClory's Never Say Never Again. But anyway, I love the whole Guess Who part of the story where we are led to believe that Columbo's the main villain, but it's actually in fact Christatos that's the big meanie. Melina's a great Bond girl that actually has a backstory that we can get invested into, and I love the end sequence with Bond scaling St. Cyril's, and honestly I have a real guilty pleasure for the final scene with Margaret Thatcher and the parrot. Absolute Bond comedy gold. And did I mention Bill Conti's score? One of the finest in the series for my money, and I fully recommend it if you're in need for some motivation. Overall, an excellent Bond movie. It's time for 003. Now I don't think I can get away with this one being any more than a guilty pleasure. Yes, A View to a Kill is seen by a lot of people as the absolute low point of the series, and I can't argue with a lot of the points that they would make. Roger probably was too old. The franchise had probably become a little bit stale and predictable. And yes, Roger's stuntman was probably in as much of the film as Roger, but I still love it. From one of John Barry's very best scores to some truly impressive stunts and locations to perhaps the best villain henchman combinations of the entire series, A View to a Kill certainly doesn't disappoint in offering you a bog-standard, fun, cheesy and easy watching Bond adventure. As much as Moore is feeling his age in this film, and in much more noticeable fashion than Octopussy 2 years prior, he's still completely at ease with the role and still pulls off the one-liner perfectly. He does admittedly look slightly less confident than his performance in the past 4 Bond films, but this is still pure Roger-tainment. I love his on-screen chemistry with Patrick Macnee and never failed to feel sorry for Tibbet in that car wash. The final battle with Zorin on the Golden Gate Bridge is iconic, and Mayday will forever be an absolutely terrifying henchwoman. She is perhaps the most believable match for Bond, and it's nice that she redeems herself towards the end once she knows that Max has double-crossed her. A perfect Bond for cheering you up, this one. Number 002. It absolutely baffles me how lowly rated this film is. It's an absolute classic in my book. After steadying the ship with For Your Eyes Only, many thought Roger should hang up his Walther PPK for good. It seems the producers agreed too, with them carrying out countless screen tests in search for the fourth 007. It's widely rumoured that Timothy Dalton was incredibly close to taking over the role, and there is a few screen tests for other actors that still exist on the bonus material of James Bond DVDs. Then came along Kevin McClory and his Thunderball remake starring Sean Connery called Never Say Never Again. The producers thought it would be far too much of a risk to pit a brand new Bond against the might of Connery, so brought back Roger as a safe pair of hands. It was to be dubbed the Battle of the Bonds. As it turns out, Never Say Never Again was delayed anyway, and we all know how the film actually turned out. Anyway, this is perhaps the closest a Roger Moore Bond film comes to a pure spy thriller, and I love it for that. There are some truly tense and emotional scenes throughout this film, particularly when VJ gets bumped off. Q also gets a much larger role in this film, and that's something we'll see again in License to Kill. There are some absolutely outrageous stunts in this film, the score is incredible, and you've got to love Bond in this film. The villains and henchmen are also god tier, and Moore's chemistry with Maud Adams is electric. Definitely a film for a Sunday afternoon. So now you know what my favourite is. And finally, number 001. Yes, of course, the Bond film that goes out of this world, quite literally. Yes, the plot is ridiculous. Yes, the space battle is far-fetched to say the least. And yes, it's a cash-in on Star Wars mania. But do I care? Not at all. This is my ultimate guilty pleasure Bond film, and for all its silly parts, I really do think there are some cracking elements to this one. I love the scenes where Bond is at Drax's estate early in the film, and he's trying to work out what's going on. I love the scene where Bond shoots the goon in the tree. I love the Magnificent Seven music while Bond is on horseback in a poncho. The main villain in Hugo Drax is definitely part of the conversation when it comes to the best Bond villain. Jaws is, at the very least, a welcome return in the first half of the movie, and I think it's actually a nice twist that he turns towards the end of the film, knowing that he will outlive his usefulness to Drax. I also love Holly Goodhead as the main Bond girl, and think they massively improved on the Agent XXX model introduced in The Spy Who Loved Me. This is a favourite for so many out there in the Bond community, and I think more than anything, it's comforting. You know how it's going to go, it follows the formula to a T, and the score is absolutely terrific. I'm happy to see it going up in people's appraisals over the last few years. Well, there you have it, my personal ranking for the Roger Moore James Bond films. He definitely saved the franchise and secured its place in film history during his 7-film tenure. It's now been 5 years since we lost Roger, and it's fair to say that there'll never be anyone like him again. In the words of Carly Simon, nobody does it better than Roger. Please let me know what your personal rankings for the Roger Moore Bond films are down in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe for plenty more James Bond content. Farewell, Mr. Bond.